Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich with an update on Hurricane Laura now, which has the potential to become a significant hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. So, friends and family in northeast Texas, there around the Texas-Louisiana coast, really need to pay attention to this storm because it has the potential to become a significant hurricane. Now, it's still a little lopsided. The northern side's got some dry air, but the central dense overcast, which is the area of cloud cover over the center, is very well organized. Hurricane hunters found it to be a hurricane this morning, and I would anticipate that it's going to wrap up pretty tightly this afternoon and become a little bit more explosive. Now, the forward speed actually is not working in its favor. If it were to slow down just a couple miles per hour, I would even be more concerned because that's going to give time for the system to organize and sit over that warm water. If you're wondering about Marco, it's no longer anything. It's a post-tropical low. It's actually dissipated, so just a little bit of moisture up there. So no issues there for Marco, but you can see the circulation associated with Laura. Very good central dense overcast, as I mentioned, but you can see up to the north, not a lot of thunderstorms in the bands to the north. They're all to the south. I expect that to change today, and there's going to likely be some rapid intensification as we go into the afternoon hours. So let's focus in on the track. This was the latest track. I'll move my head out of the way there. You can see the movement to the northwest. This would classify as rapid intensification because in about 24 hours, it's going to drop about, maybe 20 millibars of pressure, and it's also going to see an uptick of wind from 75 to about 105 mile per hour winds, and by tomorrow night 115, and it could be even higher than that. Now, here's the weird thing about it. There's a period of rapid intensification here, but about 12 hours before landfall, there's going to be some wind shear. So while it will be intensifying on the way up, there's also a chance it could weaken just a hair before landfall. The problem is the stronger it is and at the speed it's moving, 16 miles per hour, that 12-hour window of shear might not matter. The surge is going to be built up and the rain is still going to be there. The thing I always tell people about these storms in the Gulf, they're like bulldozers. They're pushing water north. So even if the storm weakens before landfall, this even happened with Katrina, remember. It was weakening at landfall, even though it was powerful, but that wall of water is already pushed up. It's not like that water just stops. It keeps pushing up. And if you see the shape of the coast here, this is a really bad storm surge setup for areas of northeast Texas and especially southwest Louisiana, all the way to the mouth of the Mississippi River. Remember, this is the center of the storm in here somewhere in this cone, but the effects, especially east because of that wraparound flow, the southeast flow, there's going to be huge storm surge all the way off to the east. So don't let your guard down with that at all. And just to show you the intensity forecast, you can see right now the Hurricane Center is right there at Category 3, but there are several models that are a little bit stronger. So the ceiling for this is a Cat 4, and the floor is a Cat 1. So, right in the middle would be Cat 3, so that's why you're looking at that forecast. But again, potential for going higher certainly there, but also lower because of that wind shear as it moves down. Now notice it weakens over time, and then there's another uptick after it gets off the east coast again. We might see, and I'll talk about this in a second, we might see it become an extratropical system off the east coast as it moves back over warm water. So what's the steering currents? Well, pretty straightforward. We've got this trough of low pressure, which is right in here. We've got the ridge of high pressure coming in like this, and they're all steering it this direction, and then it's going to get picked up and go this direction. So you can see the big plume of moisture in between the trough and the high. That's why we've had showers today and really yesterday as well. Some moisture getting pinched off between the ridge and this trough, which is here. And this trough is actually a pretty significant trough for this time. You're up in here with another trough coming down. Actually, that's why there's severe weather risk up in this part of the country today. But you could see the steering currents are pretty straightforward. And if anything, we're seeing a little bit of a hint that it's going to shift to the west even further over time. Now, let's talk about the long-range forecast here. I'm going to take off the temperatures here real quickly, just so they're not cluttered. So you can see the forecast track up here, and I actually put the consensus model on here. So there's a chance that this is going to pass to our north for our area. So what about impacts for the Carolinas? The thing I'll watch, especially for the mountains, is the orientation of this track, because like this, the southwest flow tends to be more of a southern mountain impact than northern or even the Piedmont. If this storm was tracking up this way and we had the flow coming out of this way, I'd be a lot more concerned. So one of the things I'll watch is what's the orientation of that flow of moisture as it gets closer to us. And I'll show you real quickly. Oh, it went away. I don't want it to the track there. We lost the track. Let's see if we can pop it back up. There we go. So there's Laura's track. So watch it moving in. You could see it there. And then look at moving up into Arkansas and then Tennessee. And then look at it racing off and then becoming an extratropical system off the northeast coast. Now, if it takes this track, the southern mountains of North Carolina would definitely have at least a risk of some heavy rain, but it really depends on the moisture. So one of the things I look at is the plume of tropical moisture. So here's the precipitable water, we call this. You see that moisture associated with it moving up into Texas, and look how far west it is. That means it's over land for a long period of time. So this will not be a strong system, obviously, when it gets to our north, but we watch for this plume of moisture. And notice the cold front coming in from the north and west. This is actually a cold front up here, kind of an early season cold front coming in from the north and west. We'll have to see how much interaction it has with that cold front, but that's also why we're going to see it become extratropical up here. Watch it move over the Carolinas. It's actually over Virginia, West Virginia, so the center's up here. But did you see how the moisture kind of jumped over us? And that has a lot to do with the flow of moisture is in this direction. And it's coming off the mountains in some cases, so it dries the air out a little bit here until the moisture gets over the mountains. So you could see it right there. There's a very narrow window where we see it move off, and then it moves off the east coast and the dry air comes in. So still not expecting any indirect significant impacts for most of the Carolinas, but the mountains will be an area that we'll watch carefully. And if you look at the long range rainfall forecast, you can see the track pretty clearly right here. But you see all this drying east of the mountains. But notice this little uptick. It's only two, but for the mountains, this part of the mountains, not a big deal. That's mainly because the moisture flow would be like this. The ideal flow for flooding, and this for us is not ideal, is a track like this where the flow comes out of the southeast or even from the west. When we see these track this far to the northwest of us, we typically don't see a ton of moisture out of that. So one of the things that I was looking at was, how much is the Hurricane Center thinking the rainfall is going to be in our area. And right now, it really looks to be confined to the mountains. So for the mountains, I definitely would pay particular attention to this. Saturday, there could be a brief shot of very heavy rain as the system moves in. But it really is going to depend on how far that tracks to our north and west. And again, we'll keep an eye on it. But right now, we're still not expecting any significant impacts from Laura, except for maybe some passing showers on Saturday. The thing I looked at today was, how many storms that make landfall in Texas, this part of Louisiana, end up impacting us. And I couldn't find any that produced any severe weather or flooding. Most of our big impacts, obviously, if you live in this area, they come up through the Florida Panhandle, up in this area. They come up this way or this way. Very seldom do we get systems that recurve way back here and end up being a big deal. They end up being a much bigger deal for these folks back in here. So that's the latest on Laura. If you have friends or family in southeast Texas and Louisiana, please tell them to be on guard. Houston might be just barely on the good side of this, but if I'm in Houston, I'm getting really nervous, especially in Galveston Bay. Really worried about the Cameron, Louisiana, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Lake Charles, over to areas of Abbeville down here towards Acadia, south of Lafayette. This is an area I would be really concerned about for the potential of some significant storm surge with this system. Of course, I will post updates later today at 5 o'clock when the new advisory comes out, and I will post updates over the next couple of days. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.